We as a society need to make a rapid and urgent transition. For the past 150 years, we've been basically riding an economic bubble, oil. What's likely happening is that that bubble is beginning to burst. It's going to become prohibitively expensive to maintain our current system of food production. It's just the transportation costs of food alone, where we're growing food in West Coast and Mexico and Central America and trucking it into cities in the Northeast is not sustainable by its very definition. There are broader economic factors that are going to come into play where it's going to shift economics in the favor of the small-scale producer. Farms will be servicing the people who live closer to them, which means that we're going to have farms wherever there's people. I don't think it's a valid argument to say that cities are too toxic to be growing food, and I just don't think that's the case, and that there's ways to address that. Bioremediation is the process of using biological organisms, bacteria, plants, fungi, nematodes, protozoa, to immobilize, degrade, bind up contaminants in the soil so that they do not pose a risk. Most bioremediation research has been done in laboratories under very controlled conditions. There have been far fewer studies done with it in applied field contexts. So we need to have partnerships between researchers and gardeners, people who are actually doing the work.
Famous chapter in Don Quixote where he sees these windmills in the distance and he thinks they're giants. He attacks them and he gets beaten up. And sort of the backstory of that is that this was during the time of the coming of the Industrial Revolution, and Don Quixote was apprehensive of that future and fearful and wanted to bring it down. So thinking about that within the context of Philadelphia being this very industrial city, now in the midst of a post-industrial state, for us, this became the perfect symbol. None of us really knew how to build a windmill or had ever demolished inside of an abandoned building. So we worked with an architect and a group of builders to get this whole thing realized.
Philadelphia is known as one of the most contaminated cities in the United States. The big problem in understanding the ecology of the soil is that many of these industries were destroyed and the rubble was strewn across the city into various lots, so we don't always know the root of the cause.
Future Farmers wanted to create a framework where people can bring in soil to get sampled and then also enjoy a bowl of soup. The information that they can gather here gives them the tools to make the decisions about what they can do with their soil, whether it's contaminated or not. This is all the soil that's come in from the first 2 days.
I'm Raj Singh with the EPA. We were asked by Region 3 to assess soil kitchen to analyze these samples for cadmium, arsenic, and lead.
Okay, you guys are our heroes.
First soil kitchen results for sample 1-0X came back with no detected arsenic, no detected cadmium, and 130 parts per million lead, which is very low. So that's good. Right there with that. Came from right there.
I am hoping that this can be a spark to put pressure on the district to come up with funds and support to clean the soil, with the hopes that people in the city would possibly grow food at home or in what are currently called brownfields.
There's a lot of different types of properties that are actually brownfields. Vacant buildings and abandoned structures, be mine-scarred lands, or former meth labs, and there's different types of properties that are eligible for our grants. The cities are, the counties, the towns, and they can apply for an EPA grant and hopefully get it cleaned up and turn it into something beautiful that's an asset for the community. I'm sitting in an EPA bus. It's our mobile lab. We're sitting next to this vacant property, and it has glass strewn about it. I would say because there's asphalt in some areas and ground in others that probably there was another structure there. It looks, based on the property behind it, that it would be early 1900s, maybe 1800s, which suggests to me that there probably would be lead. Right away, I would look into the property history to figure out, is there something that would suggest lead's an issue? As of right now, you cannot remove lead through phytoremediation. The good news is you can actually add compost and soil amendments that will actually bind the metals. They're still there. They're being diluted as you add more material. So the good part is you are reducing the availability of any of that to have a toxic effect on earthworms and people and birds. It's taken us, in some cases, a couple hundred years to contaminate our industrial environments. And so a lot of these things can't be solved overnight. Our goal really is to have a lot of these community-driven because they have to live with the consequences of what it turns into. So we talk about it as land revitalization. It's our responsibility as citizens to be involved in these things in our neighborhood. We've got to change the face of urban America, and this is a great way to do it.
Contamination is a huge issue, but we have solutions. We can build our own soil, we can raise beds. There's phytoremediation, there's mycoremediation. We all have to be farming, we all have to be planting, and we have to organize.
It may be that the so-called proverbial invisible hand of capitalism is just going to make this shift happen, but I think we can utilize cheap petroleum as it is available to us now to build infrastructure, to plan ahead, to make this inevitable transition more of a prosperous and gradual one. I guess I sort of see it as this. We've been handed this toxic legacy that comes as a consequence of the past 150 years of industry. I believe we have a responsibility to deal with that toxicity, to pass on to future generations soils in better condition than they are right now, because healthy soil is the foundation of society in and of itself.